Marvel has been killing it the last decade with the release of movies like Thor, Iron Man, Captain America, and the Avengers, among many others. But it is important to remember the first actual hit movie based on a Marvel character was way back in 1998, and it was Blade, a movie about vampires. Now the MCU is at it again with the vampire trope, only this time it is the character Morbius that will get the big screen treatment. And from what we have seen so far, the new Marvel movie promises to be one hell of a ride. Today in this video, we will take a look at Marvel's new flick Morbius and its characters. Comic book origins. Dr. Michael Morbius, the living vampire, first debuted in Amazing Spider-Man number 101, exactly 50 years ago. Back in 1971, the Comics Code censorship rules loosened up, which allowed vampires and other monsters to appear in comics yet again. Stan Lee wasted no time quickly jumping on these new allowances. He commissioned writer Roy Thomas and artist Gil Kane to come up with a vampiric villain for Peter Parker to fight. From a very young age, Michael Morbius lived with a rare and debilitating blood condition. Raised mostly in isolation by his mother in Greece, he had only one true friend in the world, Emil. The pair became like brothers, and both grew up to become lauded scientists and biochemists. Their research to create a cure for Morbius' condition even earned a Nobel Prize. Michael and Emil decide to take stage 2 of their experiment to the open sea as a way of avoiding anyone getting hurt. Feeling like this was his last chance, Dr. Morbius used electricity combined with vampire bat DNA. The resulting experiment turned him into a pseudo-vampire, and he killed his best friend and jumped ship. Because he did not gain his abilities via supernatural means, it meant that he wasn't a true blue Nosferatu. He still had to drink blood to survive as a regular vampire would, and he could fly, he had super strength, and had some psionic abilities like hypnotism, but the similarities ended there. Morbius could walk in sunlight, albeit with less power. He also did not have any of their usual weaknesses, like religious symbols such as crosses or stakes through the heart. Morbius' comic introduction was primarily as a villain to Spider-Man. Peter's radioactive blood put Morbius' disease into remission and was therefore quite tasty. Despite these battles with Peter, he quickly went on to headline his own solo adventures in Vampire Tales, and later Adventure into Fear. Both showcased Morbius as a tragic anti-hero more than a straight-up monster. He often saved innocents while giving in to his bloodlust and killing off bad guys, but sometimes innocents would also be killed. As a living vampire, the real vamps of the Marvel Universe often came into conflict with Morbius, specifically Dracula and his daughter Lilith. He also had to deal with the iconic Blade several times. So let's break down some of the main characters and Marvel's Morbius. Loxias Crown, aka Hunger's origin in Marvel Comics. Not much has been revealed in Marvel Comics about Loxias Crown's early life, but as an adult, he developed a great obsession with gaining power by any means necessary. In the comics, Crown once threatened scientists who were working on an energy generator. He claimed he would hold them hostage and let the generator explode unless the scientists cooperated, but secretly, he wanted the machine to blow up. Crown hoped to absorb the generator's energy when it exploded, thus gaining enormous power from it, but his plans were thwarted by Spider-Man's arrival. With his dreams seemingly derailed, Crown decided to join Hydra and pursue a relationship with a Hydra scientist named Dr. Andrea Jansen, who he later discovered was working with Morbius to try and find a cure for his vampirism. Morbius was unaware at the time of the pair's ties to Hydra, but when he figured it out, he tried to sacrifice himself to stay out of Hydra's hands. His efforts failed, and Morbius was instead taken prisoner. Experiments performed on Morbius eventually allowed Crown to become a pseudo-vampire himself, known as Hunger. Simon Stroud. In the Marvel Comics, Simon Stroud is a CIA agent turned NYPD cop who tends to find himself investigating cases of the traditional supernatural monster variety. In fact, before he gets assigned to the Morbius case, he's already made a name for himself with his lengthy involvement in the Man-Wolf case and the Creatures on the Loose series. Without venturing into spoiler territory, this connects him to a very integral character in the Spider-Man franchise. Agent Stroud might be something of a monster hunter, but while the comic book version has to make do with human abilities and clever weaponry, Morbius the movie hands the character a pretty neat equalizer in the shape of a powered artificial arm. That arm has all kinds of special effects and powers, and that's going to mess people up when they see this movie, Gibson told Maxim. It's my first time ever officially being a superhero. I've done some superhero shit, but I ain't never been a superhero. I had to explain this to my daughter. Adrian Toomes, aka the Vulture. In the Marvel Comics, Adrian Toomes is a former electronics engineer who was once for business partner of Gregory Bestman. After discovering that Bestman had secretly been embezzling funds and that Toomes had no legal recourse, Toomes decided to use the flight harness that he created to turn to crime professionally as the Vulture. Also, he was one of the founding members of Spider-Man's recurrent group of enemies, the Sinister Six. Toomes made his MCU debut in Homecoming, which is also the last time anyone saw the villain. After Spider-Man ruins his operation of scavenging Avengers battle scenes to sell weaponry based on stolen Chitauri technology, he is sent to jail at the end of the film. In the mid-credits, Toomes is dressed up in the prison's finest white uniform when he runs into Matt Gargan, played by Michael Mando, who asks Toomes to reveal the real identity of Spider-Man. In the comics, Toomes and Morbius know one another and are part of the Sinister Six, which are Spider-Man's greatest enemies. Vulture happens to be one of the group's founding members, and other members have included Mysterio, Shocker, Scorpion, and the Tinkerer. And if the pieces are coming together in your head, yes, Toomes knows 3 of those men that have been seen before. His presence in Morbius could mean he's putting together the Sinister Six for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Martine Bancroft. Martine Bancroft was the girlfriend and secretary of Nobel Prize-winning scientist Dr. Michael Morbius. She accompanied Morbius and his assistant Emil Nikos on a yacht where they were conducting an experiment to cure Morbius of a degenerative blood disease. The experiment backfired, turning Morbius into a living vampire, and after killing his assistant, Morbius dove into the water, not wishing to hurt Martine. Now Martine, who falls in love with Morbius, decided to become a vampire, and succeeded with the hope of spending eternity with Morbius. Morbius in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Morbius is in the supernatural area of the Marvel Universe that includes Man-Thing, Werewolf by Night, Man-Wolf, Ghost Rider, Blade, Satana, and Son of Satan. While not a straight-up hero, Morbius isn't the villain he was originally portrayed as. Instead, working as an anti-hero, carving his own path towards his own brand of justice. As a member of Legion of Monsters as well as the Midnight Suns, Morbius has fought many arcane villains from the Marvel U. The Morbius movie trailer teases that Morbius' cinematic journey may well follow its source material, as he is seen conversing with Adrian Toomes, aka the Vulture, for a brief moment. Vulture appears to be taken away by police when he tells Morbius that they should stay in touch, which suggests the character may well encounter Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the future. Morbius is officially part of Sony's Spider-Man universe, and the trailer showed Morbius reading J. Jonah Jameson's Daily Bugle, and it also referenced the events of Spider-Man Far From Home. The end of the film saw Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, be framed for Mysterio's murder, and his real identity revealed by Jameson to the world. So the connection to Spider-Man is prevalent, but despite this, Morbius is said to act as a standalone feature focused entirely on its lead character, much like Venom before it. Morbius references the events of both Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home, so it will take place after these 2 films. The film comes out on January 28, 2022, shortly after the release of the 3rd film in the Spider-Man franchise, Spider-Man No Way Home, but it was delayed several times because of the COVID pandemic. It was originally meant to be released in July of 2020. For sure, you have your own thoughts about the upcoming movie Morbius and predictions for the future of the cinematic MCU. So, be sure to mingle down in the comments section. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you all very soon.